I wasn't planning to find anything weird when I started looking into my family tree. It was just one of those things I picked up during a boring weekend. A friend recommended a genealogy site, and I figured, why not? I started with the basics: my parents, grandparents, some cousins I barely remembered. Then I got curious and decided to dig into my own records, just to see what popped up. That's when it got strange. I found a death certificate. Same name as mine. Same birth date. Same social security number. The certificate said I had died in 2013. But I was sitting there alive in 2025, staring at my laptop in total silence. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. A glitch in the site, maybe. I double-checked the entry. It wasn't just a typo. The place of death was a city I've never been to, Billings, Montana. I live in Florida. I've never even stepped foot in Montana, but everything else matched. I kept looking at the document, trying to find anything that could explain it. A different middle name, a missing number, something. But no, it was like someone had taken my identity and died with it. Or worse, like I had died and just didn't know it yet. It sounds insane, but my hands were literally shaking while I stared at the screen. I didn't even realize how hard I was breathing until my dog jumped up on the couch next to me, probably sensing something was off. I couldn't let it go. I spent the rest of that night digging through every record I could find. I checked the Social Security Death Index, cross-referenced obituaries, even ran my own name through public record sites. Every time, that same death kept popping up. Same name, same birth date, same SSN, same date of death, July 19th, 2013. I don't know why, but that date stuck in my head. I even checked my old calendars and emails from that year, trying to remember what I was doing that day. I had a dentist appointment, apparently. Nothing special. It's like my life went on normally, while on paper I was dead. I know this sounds stupid, but I started feeling like maybe I was dead in some way, like maybe I wasn't supposed to be here. The next morning, I called the Montana Department of Public Health to ask for a copy of the original death certificate. I didn't tell them it was about me, just said I was researching a distant relative. They emailed me a scanned version a few hours later, and my stomach dropped. There was a signature at the bottom, where the next of kin usually confirms the info. It was signed by someone named Karen D. Lynch. I don't know any Karen Lynch. The weirdest part? The handwriting looked so familiar. Not just like I'd seen it before, like I had written it. I actually pulled out an old birthday card I wrote to my mom a few years ago to compare. Same slant, same rounded letters, same odd way of making the capital K. I couldn't stop staring at it. I remember thinking, what if this isn't someone else pretending to be me? What if it actually was me? I started losing sleep over it. Every night I'd lie there replaying that document in my head, trying to rationalize it somehow. I even asked my parents if we had any distant relatives with my exact name, maybe some long-lost cousin or something. My mom got weirdly quiet and said, "Not that I know of," but something about her tone didn't sit right with me. Like she wasn't telling me everything. That night, I went back online and tried to trace Karen D. Lynch. Took me hours, but I found an old listing for a Karen Lynch who used to live in Billings around 2013. No social media, no recent records. Just gone. Like she disappeared after signing my death certificate. I even tried to call the number listed in an old property record. Disconnected. I don't know what I was expecting. That she'd answer and explain everything? That she'd tell me this was some kind of clerical error? But then something really messed up happened. I was checking my mailbox the next day, and found a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a photocopy of my driver's license. Not a fake, my actual license, same number, same photo. But it was old, and worn like it had been sitting in someone's wallet for years. The issue date was 2011. I didn't even get that license until 2015. And in the corner of the envelope, written in red ink, was the same date from the death certificate, July 19th, 2013. That's when I felt it in my chest, like something was seriously wrong. This wasn't just some glitch in a database. Someone out there had something of mine. Something real. Something physical. And they knew where I lived. I ended up calling the police, thinking maybe someone stole my identity years ago, and it was just now coming back around. The officer I spoke with was polite, but didn't seem too concerned. He took a report, told me to keep an eye on my credit, and basically said there wasn't much they could do unless I was actively being defrauded. I tried to explain the death certificate, the envelope, the fact that it was my own identity that had supposedly died, but he just said, "Sometimes records get messed up." I could tell he didn't believe a word of it. I didn't blame him, honestly. I wouldn't believe me either. But that night, I sat in my apartment with all the lights on, watching the street from my window like some paranoid freak. Every car that passed, every footstep in the hallway, felt like someone coming to tell me I wasn't supposed to be here. A few nights later, I started getting phone calls. Always from unknown numbers, always silent when I picked up. One night, I let one of the calls go to voicemail. There was only static, but not the random kind. It sounded almost patterned, like something trying to come through. I ran the audio through some software online just to see if I was going nuts, and weirdly enough, someone else had posted about hearing similar static patterns in voicemails. But they were part of a forum that got shut down a couple years ago, like their whole thread disappeared. I kept digging and eventually found an archived screenshot. One of the usernames was KLYNCH13. The post was from 2014. The thread was titled, "What if you remember living past the day you died?" After that, I started feeling like I was being watched. I know how that sounds, cliché, right? But it wasn't just paranoia. I'd be walking my dog and see the same gray sedan parked a few houses down, engine running, no one getting out. It'd be there some mornings, gone by the time I looked again. Once, I swear I saw someone inside with a phone pointed right at me like they were recording. I tried walking toward it, just to see what would happen, and the car drove off fast. I even checked with a neighbor to ask if they'd seen it around. They said no, but they looked confused, like they didn't believe me or didn't want to get involved. Every day after that, I felt this tightening in my chest, like the world around me wasn't entirely real anymore. Like maybe I was living on borrowed time, or worse, in someone else's place. I finally decided to visit Billings. It was insane, I know, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to see where I supposedly died. I booked a flight, took some time off work, didn't tell anyone where I was going. When I got there, everything felt off. Not scary at first, just wrong. Like I'd been there before, even though I knew I hadn't. I went to the address listed on the death certificate. An old apartment building with faded bricks and boarded windows. Most of it looked abandoned. I didn't expect to find anyone there, but I knocked anyway. No answer. I waited, walked around the side alley, and found a back door half open. I shouldn't have gone in. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. The air inside was stale, like it had been sealed up for years. And in the hallway, this part still makes my skin crawl. There was a mirror nailed to the wall. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. I froze. In the reflection, standing just behind me, was someone who looked exactly like me, but older. Not by much, just a little more worn, like they'd lived a harder life. Same face, same eyes, same scar above the eyebrow I got in high school. I spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. Just the empty hallway. I looked back at the mirror, and now it only showed me. I don't even know how long I stood there. Could have been seconds, could have been minutes. My mind just stopped. I felt this overwhelming pressure in my head, like my brain couldn't make sense of what I'd seen. I turned and ran out of there, full-on sprinted back to the motel I was staying at. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid there, every light on, phone in hand, refreshing flight apps trying to get the earliest one back home. When I got back to Florida, I thought maybe I could just forget about it. But things kept happening. A week later, I got a notification from a credit monitoring app saying a new account had been opened in my name, in Montana. I froze. The kicker? It had been approved. I called the company, tried to explain, told them I never applied for anything there, but they said everything matched. SSN, birth date, even a copy of a state ID. I asked them to send it to me. When I opened the email, I felt sick. The ID photo, it was me. Not like a stolen photo. It was a new one I had never taken. I was wearing a flannel shirt I'd never owned, in front of a gray background I didn't recognize. But the face was mine, without question. And the issue date, July 20th, 2013, the day after I supposedly died. I haven't gotten any real answers since then. I stopped trying. The calls eventually stopped. The gray sedan hasn't shown up again. It's like everything just paused. But I can't shake the feeling that whatever happened didn't end. It just went quiet. Like whoever, or whatever, was behind all this is still out there, watching, waiting. I've even tried convincing myself it was just a case of stolen identity, or maybe some elaborate scam, but that doesn't explain the photo, or the mirror, or the handwriting that looked just like mine. I still have the envelope with my old license. I keep it locked in a box in my closet, but sometimes I hear a rustling sound coming from there late at night, like someone moving paper. I've checked it dozens of times. Nothing's ever out of place, but I hear it. I haven't told many people about this. A couple friends, but they just looked at me like I needed sleep or therapy. Maybe I do. Maybe I imagined parts of it. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. There was something, or someone, out there that knew everything about me. And for a while, it was like they were trying to take my place, or maybe remind me that I wasn't supposed to be here at all. The part that scares me the most is, what if they succeeded? What if I did die that day in 2013? And this version of me, the one writing this right now, isn't the real one? Sometimes I wonder if I'm just the leftover, some echo of a person who no longer exists. All I know is, ever since I found that death certificate, nothing has felt real again. When we first moved into the house, I remember feeling this weird mix of excitement and unease. It was an old place, built in the late 60s, tucked at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. The kind of street where nothing ever seems to happen, too quiet in hindsight. My wife and I had been renting for years, so finally owning something felt like a huge step. But almost immediately, things started to feel off. It wasn't anything dramatic at first, just little things. The living room always felt a few degrees colder, even with the heater blasting. Our dog Murphy would just sit and stare at corners for minutes at a time, growling low but never barking. You tell yourself it's just an old house settling, right? Then the mail started coming in. At first, it looked like the usual stuff, junk flyers, a few envelopes from the utility companies, the typical welcome to the neighborhood kind of thing. But mixed in with our names were these other letters, all addressed to the observers. No first names, no initials, nothing, just that title. At first we figured it was a weird business name, or some kind of mistake. I even wrote "Return to sender," not at this address, on a few and stuck them back in the mailbox. But they kept coming. Different handwriting, different stamps, some postmarked from places I'd never even heard of. It wasn't just once or twice. It was consistent, weekly, always the observers. It started bothering me more than it should have. One night, I stayed up going through the envelopes we hadn't thrown out yet. None of them had return addresses. A couple were sealed, but most had already been opened, not by us, but before they even got to the mailbox. Inside, there were these short, vague messages typed on old, yellowed paper. Things like "they've noticed the change," or "do not interfere with their process." No context, no names, nothing that made sense. I didn't even tell my wife about it right away because it sounded so ridiculous, and honestly, I was embarrassed for getting so worked up over it. But there was this one note that just said, "You're being watched. Don't disappoint them." That was the first time I actually felt scared in that house. When we finally asked the realtor about it, kind of casually like, "Hey, do you know if the last owners were running a business or something called the Observers?" Her whole face changed. It was quick, like a glitch, but I noticed it. Then she kind of laughed nervously and said, "Oh, that? Yeah, believe it or not, they legally changed their name to that. The whole family." I thought it was some cult thing at first, but no, it was all legit. She even pulled something up on her phone showing a copy of the name change document. It was real. All 5 of them, 2 parents, 3 kids, now officially the Observer family. I remember just standing there, holding that paper, and feeling this wave of dread settle in my chest. Something about it felt so wrong, like we had walked into the middle of something we weren't supposed to be part of. After that conversation with the realtor, things escalated quickly. The very next day, I found one of those letters inside the house. Not in the mailbox, not by the door. It was on the kitchen table. We always lock up doors, windows, everything. I even double-checked the footage from our doorbell cam, but nothing. Just us leaving and coming back. The letter was folded neatly like the others, and this one just said, "We appreciate your cooperation so far." That was it. No envelope this time. No stamp. My wife thought I was playing some weird joke when I showed her, but once she saw how shaken I was, she stopped laughing. That's when she admitted she'd been having dreams. Not normal ones, recurring nightmares where she was watching us sleep, from the ceiling corner, like she wasn't in her own body. It was around that point we stopped feeling alone in the house. Not in a ghostly, haunted way, it was subtler than that. Like there was always someone just out of frame, observing. The name started to feel more real, the Observers. The air in the hallway felt charged, like it had weight to it. We both started avoiding certain parts of the house without even talking about it. I caught myself whispering at night, like I didn't want to wake someone up, even though it was just us. The mirrors started to feel strange too. Not the reflections themselves, but this uncomfortable pull, like you were being looked through instead of looking at something. I tried brushing it off. Sleep deprivation, stress, whatever. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. Something was watching, and it wanted us to know. One night, about 3 weeks after we moved in, Murphy, our dog, started barking like crazy around 2 a.m. He's usually calm, barely makes a sound, but this time he was going off like he was trying to tear through the front door. When I got downstairs, I saw him just frozen, tail stiff, staring at the window next to the door. I pulled the curtain aside and no one was there. But I swear to God, I saw a reflection in the glass that didn't match mine. It was like someone else was standing behind me, just out of reach. I spun around and the hallway was empty, but I could feel this electric kind of pressure in the air. Like the moment before a thunderstorm, except it was inside. Murphy wouldn't calm down for hours, and that night neither of us slept. I kept every light in the house on until the sun came up. The next morning, I went outside to clear my head and get some fresh air. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There were boot prints in the dirt around the side of the house. Not mine, not from any delivery guy. They were too clean, too deliberate. Like someone had been walking slowly in circles along the side wall, just pacing back and forth. I followed them until they just stopped. No turn, no retreat. Just ended in the middle of the yard like the person vanished into thin air. I took pictures. I don't even know why, maybe just to prove to myself I wasn't losing it. I didn't show my wife. She was already starting to feel uneasy in the house, and I didn't want to push her over the edge. But deep down, I was starting to wonder if we had made a huge mistake moving in. We seriously considered leaving after that, but every time we brought it up, something would happen that made it feel impossible. One day the car wouldn't start, brand new battery, no reason. Another day, all the lights in the house flickered for almost an hour straight, but the power company said there were no outages reported in the area. We started getting these weird phone calls too. Always at the same time, 3:17 a.m. The phone would ring once, just once, and stop before we could answer. No number on the screen, just unknown. It got to the point where my wife stopped sleeping in our bedroom and started crashing on the couch with Murphy, who refused to leave her side anymore. I could feel us both unraveling in different ways, like whatever was going on wasn't just in the house. It was on us, wearing us down. But the worst part, the thing that still gives me chills, happened about a month in. I was cleaning out the attic, just trying to stay busy and get my mind off things, when I found this old box tucked behind the insulation. It was taped shut with layers of masking tape, like someone really didn't want it opened. Inside were dozens of photographs, all black and white, faded with time. Every single one showed a different house. Not ours. Not any I recognized. But in every picture, there was always a window, and in every window, there was a shadow, the outline of someone just standing there watching. No faces, no details. Just a figure. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. That same night, another letter appeared, no envelope again. It said, "You're learning." We stopped talking about the letters after that. It was like acknowledging them gave them more power. But even without saying it out loud, we both knew things had gone too far. I started sleeping during the day and staying up all night, just watching. Watching them, I guess. I didn't know where they were or what they were exactly, but I knew we weren't alone. Sometimes I'd hear soft footsteps upstairs when I knew no one else was there. Once, I swear I heard my wife calling my name from the basement, but she was asleep on the couch the whole time. I didn't go check. I couldn't. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just scared of the house anymore. I was scared of what the house was doing to me. Then came the silence. Total, eerie silence. No more letters, no more knocks, no strange footprints, no flickering lights. Just this dead, unnatural calm. You'd think that would be a relief, but it wasn't. It was worse. It felt like we were being ignored, or worse, like they were done watching because they had seen enough. We moved out 2 weeks later, broke our lease, sold most of our stuff, left the state. We didn't tell anyone the full story, just that the house wasn't for us. Every once in a while, I check online listings to see if it goes back on the market. So far, nothing. No record. Like it vanished. And still, to this day, once in a while, a letter shows up. No return address. Always addressed the same way. The Observers. I've tried throwing them away, burning them, even burying one in the woods miles from here. They always come back. Not the same letter, not exactly. But another one, always simple, always vague. Things like "we remember," or "still watching." I don't talk to my wife about them anymore. She doesn't ask, and I think part of her just wants to believe we left it all behind. But I can't shake the feeling that we never really left anything, like whatever that presence was, It was never about the house. We were just the latest people to step into its view. I've become hyper-aware of everything now. Reflections, strange noises, the feeling of being watched in places where no one should be. It's like my brain is permanently wired to scan for them. Sometimes I think back to that realtor, to the way her face twitched for half a second when I first asked about the observers. I wonder if she knew more. I wonder if we were set up somehow. But at the end of the day, there's no explanation. No ending that makes sense. No event that ties it all up neatly. It just stopped, as suddenly as it began. And that's what still haunts me. Not the letters, or the photos, or even the shadows. It's the silence. The idea that they saw what they wanted, and then moved on. And that maybe someday they'll want to look again. I never thought I'd be the kind of person a story like this would happen to. But honestly, after what I experienced, I can't keep quiet. I live alone in a small studio apartment, nothing fancy, but it's mine, and it's supposed to be my safe space, you know? It all started a couple of weeks ago, when I began noticing something weird with the ceiling tiles above my bed. At first, I thought I was overthinking, but every morning I'd wake up and swear they looked off, like just a little out of place. I blamed it on bad sleep, or maybe the humidity messing with the panels. It wasn't dramatic or anything. They were barely shifted, just enough that someone really paying attention would notice. And I noticed. I tried ignoring it for a few days, thinking maybe I was losing it a bit. I even laughed at myself. Who gets paranoid over ceiling tiles? But the feeling kept bugging me. I ended up setting up my old phone to record while I slept. Just propped it on a shelf facing the ceiling. I was half expecting to find nothing, and convince myself to chill out. The next morning, I eagerly checked the footage, and nothing. Literally nothing. The whole night went by without a single thing happening. No movement, no sounds, nothing. But the tiles? Still a little off when I woke up. That's when it stopped feeling like a joke and started feeling like something was seriously wrong. The next few nights were the same. I kept recording, using both my phone and an old webcam connected to my laptop, just to be sure I wasn't missing anything. I even tried staying up one night, but I must have dozed off at some point because again I woke up to the same thing. The tiles slightly ajar, like someone had pushed them from above and not bothered to fit them back perfectly. I was starting to get that awful, crawling feeling in my gut, like I was being watched or something. It sounds crazy even writing it now, but that's how it felt. I checked all the windows, locked everything, even blocked the apartment door with a chair, like some desperate move to make myself feel safer. Nothing changed. What finally pushed me over the edge was one morning, when a small bit of pink insulation fell onto my bed. It was the size of a coin, but that was enough for me to lose it. I grabbed a broom and poked at the loose tile above my bed. It moved way too easily, like it wasn't even properly in place anymore. That's when I noticed something odd sticking out of the insulation. At first, I thought it was just some metal bracket or a piece of the building's structure, but when I adjusted the broom and pushed the insulation aside, I saw it. It was a phone, just wedged there, in the space between the tiles and the insulation, with the camera lens pointing directly down at where my bed was. My stomach dropped. I can't even describe the kind of cold panic that hit me in that moment. I was shaking, sweating, my hands felt numb. I didn't even think straight. I climbed up on a chair, yanked the phone out with both hands, almost fell doing it. The phone was cheap, like one of those burner phones you see in crime shows, but seeing it there, hidden right above where I sleep, made it feel like something straight out of a nightmare. My brain went into overdrive. Who the hell put this here? How long had it been there? I checked the phone, but it was locked. No brand logo, no identifying marks, nothing. Just this black rectangle that had been quietly recording me while I thought I was safe in my own damn bed. I couldn't help but feel disgusted, like my apartment wasn't mine anymore. Like whoever did this had been inside my space, touching my stuff, getting close enough to set this up. The worst part? I called the building manager, I called the cops, and both of them acted like I was overreacting. The manager swore no maintenance had been done in my unit, and the cops told me unless I had proof of someone actually entering my place, there wasn't much they could do. I showed them the phone, but they barely even looked at it. Said it was probably left from before I moved in, which makes no sense, since I'd been living there for over a year, and the tiles only started getting weird recently. I tried explaining all that, but they gave me that look, the maybe you're just paranoid look. I felt so helpless, like I was invisible in my own crisis. That night was the worst. Even with the phone gone, I couldn't sleep. Every little creak from the ceiling made me flinch. I kept staring up at those stupid tiles, wondering if there was still something, or someone up there. I ended up dragging my mattress to the other side of the apartment, like that would make any difference, but it felt like the only thing I could control. I spent hours just sitting there, lights on, trying to convince myself it was over now that I had the phone. But deep down, it didn't feel over. I had this awful sensation that whoever did it was still out there, still watching, still waiting for the right moment. And that messed with my head more than anything. The next day, I forced myself to climb up again and check the whole ceiling. I took down every single tile one by one, looking for anything else hidden up there. It was exhausting and honestly terrifying. I kept expecting to find another phone, or a camera, or even worse, something that would prove someone had been crawling around above me. But there was nothing. Just insulation, some dust, and a few dead bugs. It was like the phone had been the only thing there. I ended up spending hours putting the tiles back, and even after all that, I still didn't feel any safer. It felt like whoever did this had won, because I couldn't even trust my own space anymore. For a few days after that, I kept all the lights on at night and barely slept. I even taped the tiles shut with duct tape, like that would stop anyone determined enough to get in. But what really messed with me was the thought that I never heard a thing. No sounds, no footsteps, nothing on the footage I recorded. It's like whoever set that phone up had a key to my place, or found a way to get in without me ever knowing. I changed the locks, of course, but it didn't make me feel better. Every creak from the neighbors above, or the pipe settling sounded like someone crawling above me. My anxiety got so bad that I started sleeping at a friend's place just to feel normal again. Eventually, I did what I thought I'd never do. I broke my lease and moved out. I didn't even care about losing the deposit. I just packed up my stuff and left. I never got any answers. The police closed the case after a few days, saying there wasn't enough evidence to pursue it. The building manager acted like I was some crazy tenant, and I honestly stopped caring what anyone thought. I kept that phone for a while, thinking maybe I'd figure out a way to unlock it, but after a few months, I smashed it with a hammer and threw it away. I couldn't stand having it in my apartment, like it carried some kind of bad energy. But the worst part is, even now, I still catch myself staring at ceilings, checking for gaps, wondering if someone's watching. I don't think that paranoia will ever really go away. The thing that still gets to me is how deliberate it all felt. Like, that phone wasn't just tossed up there randomly. It was perfectly angled, right above my bed, as if someone had taken their time to set it up just right. It makes you wonder how long it was there before I noticed the tiles. Weeks? Months? I keep replaying everything I did in that room, changing clothes, sleeping, pacing around during phone calls. It's this horrible, violating feeling, like parts of my life were stolen from me without me ever knowing. I hate how that single discovery managed to shake the way I look at every room I walk into now. I still check smoke detectors to make sure there's nothing inside, still look behind vents, still tap on walls just in case. But here's the thing, after I moved out and tried to start fresh, something weird happened. One morning, a couple of weeks into the new apartment, I woke up and noticed the vent cover in my bedroom looked slightly off. Not a lot, just a tiny shift, like it had been opened and pushed back without lining it up perfectly. My heart dropped. I got up slowly, walked over, stood on the bed, and looked inside. Nothing, just darkness and dust. But the feeling was exactly the same as before. I told myself it was just my imagination, probably me being paranoid again. I haven't touched it since. I don't know if it's better to look again, or to just let it be. All I know is that I still sleep with one eye open. And every morning, I check the ceiling first. I guess the worst part of all this is that I never got closure. No one confessed, no neighbor seemed suspicious, no new evidence ever showed up. It all just stopped, like whoever did it moved on, or maybe just wanted to mess with me for a while. I think that's what haunts me the most, not knowing why. Was it some sick prank? Was someone watching me for a reason? Or was I just some random target? These are the questions that still eat at me when the apartment is too quiet at night. People love to say, "You're safe now," or "That was just a one-time thing." But unless you've been through something like this, you don't get it. That feeling never really goes away. Even now, sitting here typing this, I keep looking up at the ceiling. I don't think I'll ever be able to stop. It's been months, but some nights I swear I hear faint creaks from above, and I have to fight the urge to rip everything apart again. Maybe it's all in my head now. Or maybe it's not. The truth is, I'll probably never know. It happened, and then it stopped, just like that. No answers, no closure, no explanation. And that's the part that keeps me awake more than anything. That it could happen again, anywhere, and I'd never see it coming. I still don't know why I was scrolling through that particular forum that night. It wasn't even one I visited regularly, just a random corner of the internet I stumbled across while procrastinating. I was half asleep, mindlessly clicking through posts when something caught my eye. A thread titled, "Lost Thoughts and Forgotten Words," with hundreds of comments. I clicked it out of curiosity, and at first, it looked like typical internet nonsense. People posting cryptic paragraphs, weird confessions, and fragments of poetry. But as I kept scrolling, something froze me in place. A post stood out not because of its content, but because it was signed with my childhood nickname, Skipper. Nobody had called me that in years, and even then, it was only ever my family and a couple of old friends. At first, I thought it was just some eerie coincidence. Skipper isn't exactly unique, right? But then I actually read the post. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was a private thought I had written down years ago in a notebook. Something I'd never shared with anyone, let alone typed up. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Maybe I had posted it myself and forgotten. Maybe it was just a freakishly similar coincidence. But the more I read, the more impossible it became to brush off. The phrasing, the punctuation, it was identical to the way I wrote it. And the way it ended? With an inside joke I hadn't thought about since I was 15. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding like I'd just sprinted a mile. It didn't make sense. That thought, that joke, it was from a time when I didn't even have a phone, let alone an account on any forums. But then I noticed something even more unnerving, the timestamp. The post had been made just 2 days ago. My hands felt clammy as I scrolled further, and sure enough, there were more posts under the same username. Each one contained fragments of thoughts I'd never shared, memories I'd written down but never spoken aloud. Some were from old journals I kept as a teenager. Others were more recent, like private messages I had drafted but never sent. I don't know how long I sat there, reading through them, but at some point, I realized I was holding my breath. Whoever was posting this stuff seemed to know me better than I knew myself. There were moments I'd written off as insignificant, things I thought I'd forgotten entirely. But seeing them typed out in front of me, it was like someone had cracked open my brain and dumped everything onto the internet. My first instinct was to log into the forum and try to contact the poster, but there was no profile to message, no way to reply directly. The only clue was that username, Skipper. And the more I thought about it, the more it felt like whoever this was wasn't trying to talk to me. They were taunting me. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those posts flashing in my mind, each one pulling up memories I'd tried to bury. I kept going back to the forum, refreshing the page to see if anything new had been posted. At around 3 a.m., a fresh post appeared. My stomach dropped as I read it. It was a private draft from earlier that week, a message I had typed to a friend but never sent. It wasn't just the words that freaked me out. It was the timestamp. The post had gone live mere seconds after I refreshed the page. It was like this person was watching me. At that point, paranoia kicked in. I unplugged my laptop and started pacing around the apartment. Was my computer hacked? Was someone spying on me? But how? My phone, maybe? I powered everything down and shoved my devices into a drawer, but the silence didn't help. If anything, it made everything worse. Every little creak in the apartment felt louder, more menacing. I checked the locks on my doors and windows 3 times before sitting back down, trying to piece together who could possibly do something like this. But no one came to mind. There was nobody in my life now who even knew about Skipper. By morning, I was exhausted but no closer to figuring out what was happening. Against my better judgment, I turned my laptop back on. The first thing I did was check the forum. Sure enough, there was a new post waiting for me. This time, it wasn't just another memory or a private thought. It was a screenshot. A screenshot of my laptop's desktop. My current desktop, with the exact time and date displayed in the corner. My throat tightened, and I felt the blood drain from my face. The screenshot showed everything, the folder names, the files I had opened last night. Whoever this was, they weren't just accessing old drafts and notebooks. They were in my computer, right now. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling. I didn't even know what to do at that point. Call the police? What would I say? Hi, someone's posting my private thoughts online, and now they're inside my computer. It sounded insane. Instead, I yanked the power cord out of the wall and shoved the laptop into the same drawer as my phone. But even with everything turned off, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The apartment felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. I started second-guessing everything. Had I locked the door after I went out last night? Was the window always open this wide? The rational part of me kept saying it was just a hacker, some creep playing a sick game. But deep down, I wasn't so sure anymore. I didn't touch any of my devices for the rest of the day. I went out, hoping that some fresh air might clear my head, but the unease followed me everywhere. Every stranger on the street felt like a potential threat. Was it someone I knew? Someone I'd passed in the hallway or on the bus? By the time I got back to my apartment, I was on edge, jumping at every sound. I finally broke and decided to check the forum again, but not from my devices. I went to a local library, used one of their public computers, and logged in. The thread was still there, but now it was locked. No new posts, no edits, nothing. Just sitting there like a digital tombstone, taunting me. I clicked through the posts again, scanning for something, anything, that might give me a clue. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. Each post had a small timestamp in the corner, and they weren't random. They were tied to specific moments from my life. A childhood memory posted at the exact time I'd written it down in an old diary. A draft I'd typed out, posted the same minute I closed my laptop. I leaned closer to the screen, my skin crawling. Then it hit me, they weren't just random posts. They were messages. Whoever this was had been following me, watching me, documenting my life down to the second. I left the library feeling like I was being hunted. It wasn't just the posts anymore, it was the timing, the precision. Whoever was doing this didn't just know about my past, they were keeping tabs on my present, maybe even my future. When I got back to my apartment, I couldn't bring myself to go inside right away. I stood in the hallway, staring at my door, half expecting it to swing open on its own. Finally, I worked up the nerve, unlocked it, and stepped inside. Everything looked normal, but the air felt heavy, like the apartment wasn't really mine anymore. I checked the windows, the locks, even the vents, but nothing seemed out of place. Then, out of habit, I checked my laptop, even though I swore I wouldn't touch it again. It powered on instantly, like it had never been unplugged. The screen lit up, and there was a single open window, the forum thread. My stomach dropped. A new post had appeared, but it wasn't just text this time. It was a photo of me, sitting in that very chair, staring at the screen. I scrambled to look behind me, but the room was empty. The blinds were closed, the door locked. The photo's timestamp? 30 seconds before I powered on the laptop. I slammed the laptop shut, my breathing shallow and fast. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Whoever this was, they were inside my life in a way I couldn't comprehend. I tore through the apartment, ripping apart cushions, pulling down curtains, searching for a hidden camera or microphone, anything that could explain the photo. But there was nothing, just silence, broken only by the sound of my own frantic movements. When I couldn't find anything, I started second-guessing myself. Was I losing it? Maybe I'd been hacked. Maybe I was just paranoid. But that photo, it was too real, too precise. Desperate, I decided to call someone, anyone, who might help me figure this out. I pulled my phone from the drawer and powered it on. As soon as the screen lit up, a notification popped up, a message from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it. The message was short, just 3 words. "Stop looking, Skipper." My heart nearly stopped. The worst part wasn't the message itself, it was the timestamp. The message had been sent exactly 1 minute before I turned my phone on. I dropped the phone like it had burned me and backed away, staring at it as if it might spring to life. My mind was racing, this couldn't be real. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in. My instinct was to get out, to leave the apartment and never come back. I grabbed my jacket, but as I reached for the door, my phone buzzed again. Another message. I hesitated, but curiosity won. I picked it up, heart pounding. This time the message said, "You can't run." That was it. No explanation, no demands. Just those 3 words. I left anyway. I didn't even bother locking the door behind me. I just ran, my breath catching in my throat as I sprinted down the street. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there. I ended up at a nearby diner, the kind that's open all night, and sat in a booth by the window, shaking uncontrollably. The waitress must have thought I was on something because she kept giving me strange looks, but I couldn't care less. I just needed to be somewhere public, somewhere safe. But the entire time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, like there were eyes on me even in that crowded diner. After a while, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was just some elaborate prank, or maybe I really was losing it. But when I pulled out my phone to check for updates, my stomach flipped. The forum thread had been deleted. The entire thing, every post, every comment was gone. In its place, there was a single message at the top of the page. "This never happened, Skipper." My hands went cold. I couldn't tell if it was a warning or a command, but either way, I felt completely powerless. Even worse, it confirmed what I'd been dreading. Whoever this was, they weren't just in my devices. They were controlling everything. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in the diner until sunrise, nursing a cup of cold coffee and trying to figure out my next move. But what could I do? Call the cops? They'd laugh me out of the station. Tell my friends? They'd think I was crazy. When the sun finally came up, I forced myself to go back to the apartment. It looked the same as I'd left it. No sign of forced entry, no hidden cameras, nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. It wasn't just the apartment that felt different. It was me. It was like whoever, or whatever, had done this had reached inside and ripped something out of me, something I'd never get back. In the weeks that followed, I tried to move on, but nothing felt right anymore. I stopped using my laptop and barely touched my phone. Every notification, every ping made me flinch. I even stopped journaling. What was the point if someone could see everything I wrote? I deleted old files, erased messages, and tried to convince myself that if I left no traces, whoever it was would leave me alone. But even with all that, the paranoia didn't go away. I started noticing little things. My door slightly ajar when I was sure I'd locked it. Lights on in the apartment when I came home, even though I always turned them off. The final straw came a few months later. I'd started keeping a burner phone, something basic, just for emergencies. One night, I was lying in bed, scrolling through the news on it, when a notification popped up. "Skipper, why did you stop writing?" It wasn't from a number. It wasn't even from an app. It was just there, hovering on the screen like a ghost. I dropped the phone and stared at it, my chest tightening. I didn't reply. I didn't throw it away either. I just sat there, staring at the dark screen, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. Just silence. And that's how it's been ever since. Quiet, empty, like they've already won.